otherwise called TK for easier pronunciation, and Arif Bobat. Today, these two exceptional speakers will be speaking about transformations. A little bit about speakers. Firstly, TK is an experienced professional coach, change agent facilitator, and system thinker focused on objective results and servant leadership. Arif, on the other hand, is experienced in leadership and team coach and passionate including product management, team culture, and supporting leaders through period of change. In this session, our speakers will go through the questions and give you tools to become agile leaders and drive successful transformation in your companies. So welcome to the stage. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Come on, let's join the stage.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for coming, the wonderful audience. I know that there's more people coming on. So let's see if this particular thing works. It does. So I'm TK, and oh, that works even too much. There's nothing like this. So I'm TK, and this is Arif. We're the part of Humble Associates. We're actually founders of a small consultancy. We'll talk more about it later on. And today we wanted to talk about, what is it that we want to talk about, Arif?
Well, we want to talk about leadership culture and a model that we like to use that we think is quite powerful to help leaders in a culture of change and transforming to agile ways of working.
Because we believe in leaders and culture quite a lot. And hopefully you do too, because you're here. Or because there was no other interesting talk that you could come to. So, if you bought, that's fine. Hopefully we'll catch your attention. This will be a bit interactive, but we hope to warm you a bit to do that. And I've heard once, someone said that if you haven't spoken yet, you haven't arrived. But before we do speaking, let's do something easier, like raising hands, I think.
Yes.
So my first question to you, because we want to know who we're dealing with, except you wonderful people. We don't know who you are. So we've been introduced, but you haven't had a chance to introduce yourself. So we want you to raise hands. There is only two very simple categories. So I would like to ask every person that considers themselves an Agile practitioner or an Agile professional, as a Scrum Master, Agile coach, in whatever capacity, raise their hand. Thank you. And
I have another question.
Yes, what's the other question?
My second question is, are there any of you who consider yourselves to be leaders in your organization? So
at present or in the future?
Yeah, some of you. Okay.
Okay, cool. There's some duplication, so thank you. So now that you know how to raise hands and you're a bit more active, we have another question for you, right? It's an Agile conference and agility fails. Hopefully sometimes. So what we would love you to do is, we'll give you 2 minutes, 1 minute each, and I would like you to find a neighbor. If you don't have a neighbor, maybe trios are okay, and talk to this person for 1 minute and get them to talk back at you for another minute about why do you think Agile transformations fail? Go. Now is the time to make the thing. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on.
Oh, you want to...
Better, wait. I'll just do this. Wait. You standing where you are?
Where do you want this?
This lady needs to sit down.
There you go.
Good. 1 minute remaining. You might want to switch partners. Yeah, it's fine. And we're done. Thank you so much for the discussion. You'll have more time. There's plenty of breaks between the sessions and the after party, when after some lubrication with various substances, you might be even more open. So if I can have your attention, because we have a reason why we think Agile transformations fails, which is what it is, Arif?
Well, I think it's slightly cut off, but something to do with organizational culture at odds with Agile values. So yes, for us, I think one of the biggest things is we find a discrepancy, a kind of differentiation where Agile values are calling you to a different way of working, a different way of thinking perhaps, but the organizational culture is quite not ready to align to that. So we have some
So how does it look like, Arif, right? You know, how can you tell that the organizational culture is not aligned?
Well, I think the easiest signal for that is our leadership, isn't it? So what we find is that we find the leadership of an organization demonstrates your culture, and the way they behave, the way they act is how a culture of an organization then appears or forms. And so when you look at that and you look at how leaders act and behave, it gives you a good signal as to what the culture of that organization is and how likely or how easy it may be for an organization to adapt to an agile way of work.
So you must have seen that, right? You've got a person in the organization that says, oh, you're supposed to work in an agile way, and this is the new kumbaya world, and they come to you asking you when it will be delivered, what's the Gantt chart, and all these kinds of things. The culture is just at odds. The organization talks agility but doesn't act it, and there's a problem that needs to be rectified. And this, you know, if you go into any of these surveys, you will find that that's one of the problems. So we believe, and this is actually about leadership, that it's the job of the leaders to give out the example of what the culture of the organization needs to be. That's very important, because we think about culture, what it is and how it works. We believe that someone needs to come in and say, this is the acceptable behavior, which is culture, and as you are looking up to me or some other person for leadership, it's my job to demonstrate it now. It's my job to set the example and say, no, it's no longer okay to ask people for Gantt charts. It's no longer okay to ask people to constantly task switch or work on unstable teams. No, I am the leader, and my behavior, it is important that I manage the culture, or I set the culture in a way that makes sense. And in an agile environment, if you want to succeed, you might want to set the culture in such an agile way. But the big question is, like, fine, but how do I do that? How do I know that my culture is compatible with agility? One would say, okay, well, if you want to see if a particular blouse would fit you, the best way to see is actually measure it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the way we tend to do it is we have a nice tool. It's called the Leadership Circle Profile. So the Leadership Circle Profile is a leadership development framework that's used to develop leaders. And what we did at Humble Associates is we adapted it to the needs of agility. It's not that we've changed it. We just say, okay, if you want to have your culture compatible and not at odds with the agile values, this is how your leadership circle should look like. And we've had some success with that, Arif, didn't we?
We have, and we'll share some of that later on. We'll go through, I think we're going to spend some time talking about what this profiling tool is, why we use it.
Definitely. Well, I wouldn't just leave you with that to do some research yourselves, right? So first of all, about the tool, many people have referred various tools. I just wanted to show you who the tool originates from. Karen Honey, she's actually one of the contemporaries of Freud, early psychiatrist. She developed a certain model of how we think, and thus also how leaders lead. So we'll talk about that to start with. Then this guy, Robert Keegan, love his work with Lisa Leahy, I think, and he talks about continued adult development, growth. So for many years, psychologists believed that we are only developing as children unto adolescence, but he broke it and said, no, we're actually developing as adults, but there's various plateaus that we reached. And based on their work, Bob Anderson has invented the leadership circle model. You know, they're both professionals, all professionals, academics, so there's definitely a lot of degree to it, but there's also a lot of practical studies. And Bob Anderson, what he did is he correlated leadership qualities with the success of the organization. And what we did ourselves, well, we wouldn't add ourselves there, we're not there yet, is correlated the leadership circle elements with the success of agility. And we'll talk about it some more later on. But let's start dissecting the leadership circle and see what it's all about, because I guess you might be curious. So let's start with the 3 types of leaders, and there is going to be an interaction quick. So the first one is the leader of the heart, isn't it?
Yes, and there's a long text on the screen, so you're welcome to read that. But the type of leader that we're talking about here is there's a couple we're going to go through, and these are predominant stances of leadership that are found, and that's what Bob's work is based on, and that's what he's categorized. Look, there's nothing to say you may find elements of yourself in other stances, but predominantly your stance is going to be one of these three. So a heart type leader is very much relationship focused. He has a bias, or they have a bias towards the relationship between others, and that has different ways of manifesting itself. So as it says here, it is all about how people can belong, and so that type of leader is looking at belonging in an organization, how they belong, how others belong, how they relate to each other, how they can bring people together to form teams and positive experiences, but also there can be other sides to that when it comes to people pleasing, passive nature, etc. So that's one form of
Helen Horney would say that this kind of a person, a leader, would derive their value on how they're being liked and how they're being perceived. And as I'm looking at you, I'm sure you know such people.
Yes.
And for some people, it's natural. They excel at doing that, but there's also a shadowy side to it. So you've got one, the leader of the heart. The second type of a leader is the leader of a mind. So for the mind type leader, what you've got is someone that's really focused on their ideas and their competency to solve problems. Now, this person really identifies themselves with their ideas. What happens is, like book authors, for instance, or the authors of particular concepts. We've seen, heard, and will hear from them on this conference. And for some, if they're really heavy onto that, if you criticize their idea, it feels like you're criticizing them. But if you find their idea valuable, you boost their ego. So these people, they're quite intellectuals, I would say. So the mind is there for a reason, but they mainly don't necessarily have to care as much about the relationships, maybe even not about the results, but a lot about the great ideas and their ability to express them, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I was thinking of an example that I worked with a leader who was a CTO who came in. We had a failing startup I was part of. It failed afterwards, but when I was there, it was failing, and they brought the CTO in to turn things around, and he had lots of great ideas, and everyone immediately gravitated towards him because he knew what he was doing, and everyone assumed that he would turn us around and take us to path of success.
Yes.
And,
but if you do believe that you can have great ideas and you will do that, you can become arrogant sometimes, right?
That's the other side of it.
And it does happen. Like, all of these styles can be positive and not so positive, but we'll talk about it later on. And finally, the third style is the style of the will. So this type of a leader is someone that really focuses on results. And I guess we know a lot of these leaders because it's like the predominant style that we see in organizations, don't we?
I used to have a manager like this, and it was a very difficult environment to work in. The results were paramount more than anything else, more than the relationship, more than how he fostered an environment of positivity. If the results weren't met, or if things weren't delivered, or reports weren't completed, he would find it very challenging, and we would, it could be quite friction. There could be a bit of friction.
It could be, right? And this leaders value, the self-value of the person, and the way they view their leadership effectiveness is based on results. Now, these people in our current Western type of organizations and leaderships are being promoted the most. So they are the leaders you might think about, the big men or big women leaders, right? That say, let's move forward, let's crush our enemies and get the results we want. Now, because they're so popular in our culture, in our organizations, I guess most of us have examples and know what can be great about them. They can be really inspiring, but what is the shadow side too? We don't need many examples. We all have our politicians and so on that are probably at least using the language. Whether they're not, they can get results is a completely different thing, right? So finally, we talked about the three aspects. Now let's talk about two of the ways you can look at these. It's like the bright and the shadow side of the moon, right? I don't want you to think about it as positive and negative, but there's two lenses that you can use to look at any of these three. And all of these three can be amazing leaders. They can be what we call creative leaders. Now, what does creative mean? Creative is probably a great photographer that's getting some of our photos, but I don't mean it as artistic creativity here. What I mean is, a person that's creative is a person that can take charge of their reality and create it and shape it with agency. All right, so it's a person that actually says, oh my God, I'm late, or oh my Lord, there's a flood, or there's no electricity. A person with a creative approach would say, well, let's do something about it, right? Fine, that's happening, but I can take charge. I can help the situation. I don't have the influence over everything. If you've listened to Chris Stone, there's obviously circles of influence. But at least there's something I can do in this situation. I'm being my best. And it's quite positive to see that.
Yeah, and I think your last point is the valid one, which is it's about being your best. So I have full control over how I wish to lead. I have full control of what I want to do. I'm not being led by what's around me. I'm making the decisions that I see that are going to benefit me and the people I work with.
But we've promised there's two sides of the moon. So there's also the reactive side. Now, as the name implies, it actually translates better in German. But essentially, the reactive side is something happened and I'm reacting to it. Now, this reactive side shows up a lot when the situation gets really dangerous, stressful, like, for instance, life-threatening. Sometimes we get back to our basic instincts, don't we, right?
Well, I think the other thing I enjoy when I was watching some of Bob's talks on this, and he describes it quite nicely around this cyclical nature leaders can get into, where there's a vicious circle. Some negative or difficult atmosphere or environment they may be operating in then causes them to feel more reactive about the situation they're in, and then that goes around in a circle, and getting out of it, it can be quite difficult.
It can, but imagine yourself in like a situation that suddenly a fire alarm breaks off and you do have thoughts of saving yourself. Right? And you probably, you know, this is how stampedes happen and so on. I'm not saying it needs to get to that. But I'm saying that sometimes, and there was a great talk about, you know, burnout and overexhaustion and all kinds of stress. When we're really being pushed, when I come and see and ask, when is this getting done? And why can't it be done tomorrow? We feel a certain way, right? When we're being faced with such a difficulty. And thus, our response can be from a reactive way. It's not always easy to say to this person, look, I think there's something going on. Please, if you can help me understand your perspective, why do you need it so much tomorrow? And by the way, you're a bit aggressive. There must be something happening to you. Now, it's great if you can be skillful like that and answer, but it's not always easy to do that because these emotions are also in you. And it's the reactive side that will play up. And all these sides of leadership have both a creative and a reactive side. But let's not think of the reactive side as evil or bad. We evolved to have the reactive side for a reason, because it helps us survive. This is where the roots of the creative behaviors sit. We grow our creative behaviors out of our reactive tendencies, which is very important to understand. It's not like, you know, it's good or bad. It's a cycle, as Arif said. It's an everlasting cycle of how we deal with that. But I promise you some interaction. So there's, before we go into this, it all forms a circle. If you get these dimensions, heart, mind, and will, and if you get creative and reactive, you get the shape of a circle. Now, some are further away. It's a bit further away to be a heart type leader to a will type leader. And the mind type leader seems to be in between. That's important to notice, because some people say, oh, I'm in all of them. You might think you are, but what will happen if suddenly the ship we're all in starts to sink? Do you think you'll be on all of them, or you'll actually choose, like save the children, or find a way to optimize your route of escape, or just bash through it to get the result, right? You will probably fall into one of them in a situation, and you probably have a favorite one. The one thing to note is some are further away from each other, because we usually do see that it takes a while to be able to transfer, if you want, and it's harder for these to exhibit these tendencies, and the other way around too. But we've given you some time to think. about these dimensions. Now it's time for you to express yourselves. Where are you in terms of your style? So we'll do talking, we'll do gestures. This is me with slightly longer hair. It's called pandemic. We may remember such a thing. So I'm going to ask you to make a gesture. You can do it sitting down. So if you are a mind type leader, it's like with your mind. You can also make a sound as I do. If you're a heart type leader, you can just show your heart. And if you're a will type leader, it's time to show the muscle of the results. So what I will do is, Arif, can you grab a phone, please? So
yes,
we can grab a photo. We won't necessarily... We'll probably share it on LinkedIn, but don't worry.
We should share our own stances.
We also share our own stances, yes indeed. Yeah. So Arif, you'll have to use one hand. I will count down to 3, and I would like you to show your preferred stance. Is that okay? All right? 3, 2, 1, go. There you go. We all have different stances. And even after these couple of minutes, it was bravo. Easy for you to be able to understand which one is the preferred one for you. So a couple of bits. First of all, it gets more complex. So there's more stuff around the circle, which we're going to talk about in the moment. And also, it gets even more complex. So this wonderful tool can help you understand where you are through psychometric. There's going to be materials, but there's going to be even more stuff. So this is like an example of a leadership circle profile from one of our clients, and you can really see where you are. And we'll talk about agility soon after. But getting back to this, you will see that there's 8 of these 8s. 8 of these smaller chunks, that you probably want to understand what they are, where they lie. So Arif can guide you through them.
We'll take you through them.
I'll be here too.
Right, yes. Okay, so if you look back here, so you can see at the top right-hand side, or the right-hand side, in the will type leadership, we've got achieving, controlling, protecting, complying, all the way around. So we'll go through these and talk through them in a bit more detail, and I may come back to that example profile that you just saw as well, if we have time. So achieving sits on that will side that TK was describing earlier on. As it says, the extent to which the leader offers visionary, authentic, and high achievement leadership. So really, most leaders demonstrate this at in some level. Good leaders will demonstrate this at some level, you know, but this is really about, go on, TK, you
but also we're used to seeing that in our Western culture, right?
Yes.
If you go deep into the East, like if you go to China or India, you will see that not all leaders have to demonstrate that.
It's a cultural phenomenon as much as anything else. But yeah, it's about how clear they are in demonstrating what needs to be achieved in order to achieve the goal, the mission, or whatever it may be.
Also in the Nordics, if you go like Norway, or maybe even here.
TK's in a cultural world now. Okay.
Well, because it's culture, come on. It has a name.
We also have protecting. Now this sits on that bottom side of the circle. So if I go back quickly, you'll see it right here in the mind, at the bottom side of the mind kind of leadership stance in reactive. You'll see protective as a characteristic. This is where we see a leader protecting themselves. They feel that they may be in that reactive stance where the environment around them is making them feel that they need to protect themselves from whatever is happening around them, so they behave in a particular way. It may not be so rational in how they may come across. They may appear quite distant, aloof. They may not be engaged with the people around them.
Maybe they feel insecure about especially their ideas because it's the mind thing, so they are arrogant, distant, critical, things that would make them appear smart, but actually they're protecting their ego.
We next have controlling. This is fairly self-explanatory. Again, this is in that will side, but on that reactive stance. So if you're in that reactive stance, you know, to what extent, to what extent are you willing to control, or are you trying to control the situation? It's a bit like we had Martin's keynote this morning around planning, and leaders wanting to maybe demonstrate control over the plan, right? There's elements of that. So there's going to be some variation of that to how much control you may see, but this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, being insecure about the results that you might get. Why are they asking for deadlines? Because they want to get it because they feel afraid that something will happen, and thus they exercise control.
5, 6, okay. Authenticity. This is completely on the creative side now. So a mind leadership style on the creative side, a leader who really is in control. They really know what they want. They know that it's about them bringing their true self to the workplace and then demonstrating what the goal is, what the mission is, where they want the team to go, where they want the organization to go. It's very easy for them. They feel comfortable in being able to demonstrate that or share that or communicate that with the people they're leading.
And it's the opposite of protecting, which is they're not afraid to expose themselves, hopefully not indecently, with their ideas, with vulnerability, because they're not insecure about their ideas and their ego.
We next have complying. So again, this is going back onto that reactive side, and this is kind of blurring between that mind and heart type of leadership stances, where we have a leader who may have low self-worth. They feel insecure, like Tika was saying. Their expectations of others mean that they're more, complying with others' expectations than self-authoring their own kind of stance of where they want to go. It's kind of, again, opposite of that authentic self, right? So it's like, oh, okay, I am led by what's going on around me. I'll just comply. It's easier for me to stay quiet. It's easier for me to not to speak up, to put my head up, or to tell people what I really think should happen.
It's safer, right?
It's safer.
It's the opposite of the achieving one. It's like, if I stay back, I'll be okay.
I'll be okay, exactly. Relating, and this is very much on the creative side, or creative half, but again, the heart type of leader who, for that person, creating relationships, forming relationships, building relationships is critical to success in their view.
And they derive a lot of value for the leadership with that. I think this is the positive side of this relating leader, right? Quite well understood and, I guess, self-explanatory.
Self-awareness is a leader's orientation. So we've got, again, on that heart, blurring the heart and mind type of leadership stances, but on that creative half of the leadership circle, we have self-awareness. And again, this is around, obviously, their own personal self-awareness as to how they're behaving, how they're interacting, how they're coming across, but they are not in that complying stage where they're kind of sitting back and let everything happen. They're still taking charge to some extent, right? So they're very clear and aware of how they come across. Their kind of empathy levels are very present. So they know they're very conscious of all of that.
And they're not afraid to look into the mirror,
yes,
which is difficult for a lot of us.
Yeah. And then on the other side of that, we have the systems awareness. So again, on that or will stance of leadership style, on the creative half, we have the systems awareness, which is now not looking at the myself, but I'm looking at the system. So I'm looking at the whole organization around me, the people that I work with, the processes, the culture. I'm looking at all of that, and I'm very clear and aware of how it should be, what it needs to look like, how it should change, etc.
And, some people say, if you look, for instance, at Steve Jobs, right? It's an interesting leader, definitely. There's controversial leaders. He might not always be very hard-driven, but he understood the system and understood people and apparently understood the market. He's being touted as the master marketer.
So I'm just going to quickly go back to just to briefly touch on this. So this is an example profile of a leader that we worked with recently. They did a self-assessment. There's a whole series of questions they asked. They get asked and they fill them in. And obviously it's only as good as the questions and the answers the leader provides. But what's interesting here, you can see how they categorize themselves in terms of how balanced their leadership stance looks like at this point in time for them. This is only a few months old, so July. And you can see for them, they felt that on that complying side, that was a big challenge for them. They felt that, this is holding them back in their leadership style, yeah, and they're perhaps not as strong or as clear on that kind of opposite side, which is the task side of leadership or the will stance of leadership, where achieving and systems awareness is a bit low.
And Arif is doing a bit for foreshadowing, because at the end of this talk we'll have a code so you can get this kind of report for yourself for free.
You can do that for yourself as well.
Oh, I know, right? You're already anxious. Come on, Arif, we need to get there.
So let's all link this back to agility now, right? That's what we're all here for. So let's move back to that. And we have a very we love this quote. We use this a lot in a lot of the work we do because, well, firstly, we're huge fans of Lisa. Lisa's done amazing work. I'm sure you know of her work and her books and what she does. But as it says, I believe Agile is an emergent response that helps us thrive in our ever-increasingly complex, changeable, interconnected world. And we've highlighted the key words for us, as for TK and I, what agility really is all about. So in order to operate in this world, we need a type of leadership stance. We need a type of leadership behavior. We need to demonstrate a certain culture of leadership. So in order to do all of that, we think there are some things that will definitely grow agility and some things that will definitely poison agility. And for a leader who maybe is interested and self-aware to some extent enough to take and assess their own leadership style and do a profile like we've been talking about, then they'll be able to kind of get an idea of where their weaknesses are, where their strengths are, how balanced their leadership stance looks like, and maybe think about those growers and poisoners.
Yes, and we do a lot of workshops with our client companies, and they're arranging it for their own goals. Because what we said is that we have to have a set of culture, values, and leadership that aligns with agility. But maybe we're countervening ourselves, so I'm not saying lying, but as you know, agility is not a goal in itself. So what are the elements of agility that you want to have as an organization? And then how can you shape the culture to reflect that? Because it can be, there can be a lot of difference between how each of you perceives agility in your organization or the goal of where you want to be and how the culture should adapt. But this is an amazing tool to map it. Because without a map, it's hard to get anywhere. Unless you have SatNav.
But that's a good point about mapping. This is not a, we are not advocating or saying here, standing here and saying, right, do this and you'll get the leadership you want. No, it's a self-awareness tool. It's just it's a tool to express where you are right now and have some
how
thoughts.
To get there. So through the process of continuous improvement coaching, all these wonderful things that you've heard about, you can actually get there. Because if you're not getting there, there might be something wrong, right? You might want one thing, but if you don't make the steps, if you're not feeling a leader within to actually get where you need to be, to create the culture you need in the organization, you probably won't succeed, and you need to face that.
So we have a slight task for you to do, actually. I'll bring the circle back again if it's easier, but as we've been talking about, there is no one-size-fits-all when it comes to leadership in terms of culture. So we'd like you to talk to your neighbors about what you think the poisoners are and what do you think the growers are when it comes to leadership and when it comes to agile transformation working.
The culture of agility in organization.
Culture of agility, exactly. And so to do that, very quickly, we'll give you a couple of minutes and I will bring this back to the circle. Let me get it back. I know we only have 10 minutes.
By couple, we mean 2 minutes, and I will time you.
Okay, so here, have a look at this circle. You've got the 8 dimensions that we've discussed. So which of these do you think are more poisonous? Which of these do you think will grow agility? So
you have 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Time starts now.
Have a chat with your neighbors.
Go.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the music.
We have, I think, less than 10 minutes.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Left. 1 minute left. Come on, talk. And we are out of time, so thank you so much. Hopefully you've explored this, but it's also quite interesting because you all probably come from different organizations and it might be different from each one of you. But we can also talk about it after, in the questions and after the, yeah. Oh, there's a thing.
So, I mean, the last thing we should say probably on this circle is that you are not going to get a leader that is completely balanced in everything. Okay, it's impossible. So, and don't even think that you are going to get there. And we are not going to advocate that at all. So it's important to just caveat this at all. And it's going to change in point in time in your life, in your career, where you are, and where you're working.
Organizations, right? Because your organizational culture will evolve too, as will your goals.
Exactly. So I just want to make that point before someone starts thinking about it. Okay, so we've kind of finished our talk, but what we wanted to offer you is an opportunity to book a free assessment with us if you're interested, if you'd like to explore this for yourself. There's a QR code. I think the URL goes to the same place, so URL, QR code, whatever you feel comfortable with.
.associates/journey.
That's right. Go on there on our webpage. You'll find a booking link on there, and you'll follow the steps there to book a free assessment, and we'll be happy to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
Anything more to say on that, TK?
Well, nope. Yeah, grab the slots before they run out because we offer a limited amount of slots for that. And yeah, we will debrief it with you and you'll get the report that you've seen.
And the last thing is, yeah, follow us on our socials.
There's another QR code,
and you can link, that's LinkedIn, I think, that top one there. So you can follow Humble on LinkedIn, some of our team who aren't here today, but
some of you actually, I've heard that are following us. So we do a lot of webinars, we do a lot of events like this. Maybe not always in person, but you can definitely listen to what we do. On LinkedIn, we do a lot of live events there.
I think we're on YouTube as well now.
Yeah, so we're on YouTube. We're actually on TikTok, Arif. You might not know. Yes.
Okay, there we
but
go.
I'm not encouraging you to go there. But if you are on TikTok and see Humble Associates, you can give us a like or whatever you do there, right?
And that brings us to the end of our talk.
The darkness, yes. It's probably questions.
Questions and comments or feedback.
Yes, we've got a lovely gentleman over here asking a question.
And feedback, I think that goes there.
I hate it. This is awful.
Hello.
Hello.
So first of all, the link is not working to the assessment.
Great.
Yeah. Hopefully, humble.associates/journey.
So what happened when you did the QR code? It didn't work.
It's just blank and doesn't load it.
Oh, so sorry to hear that.
It worked earlier on.
Yes. We're hoping that if you go to humble.associates/journey, it will work for you.
So this should work.
We'll check it out.
I'll leave that there, so you can look at
Sorry
that.
about that.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. But then the question.
The question, please.
So there are quite a lot of self-assessments already existing. So, for example, disk profile, PAPI, and how this assessment is different from those, and what are your advantages from other assessments?
So the leadership circle is focused on leadership qualities. It's not focused on your personality. It's not about the person you are, it's about the leader you are. So if you feel like, hey, you're not a leader or you don't want to be a leader, this might not be for you. That's quite important to notice because also what the leadership circle has is it shows, and if you read their materials, you can go to the website Leadership Circle, it correlates to the effectiveness of your organization because we believe that agility correlates to your culture, but the leadership circle and your leadership effectiveness also correlates to the results of your organization. All models are wrong. Some are useful. Thank you. Any other questions? I'm sure there's... Come on. Your microphone is on the way. Anna, yes.
I'm sorry. Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for the presentation. It was really interesting.
Thank you for being our wonderful member of the audience.
Thank you. My question is, just correct my understanding if I missed that. At certain points of time, we might show different angles of ourselves, right? So we need this evaluation to understand the reality and maybe adjust our behavior to the needs of organization, or not.
There's a lot to unpack here. Arif, would you like to start?
Well, I mean, if I understood your question correctly, sorry, you're asking about when to do this, or when would be the right time? Is that what you're thinking about?
No, I think you could do it through time, and every time you will get different results because situation changes and you evolving, hopefully for the best. But that's the tool, right?
So you've said something important, and that's the tool. But if I can just answer maybe from the end of your question, it would be a shame. I mean, it isn't a shame, but I hope that you can shape the organization by who you are and not have to feel that you have to adapt yourself to the organization. So I'll address that first, right? But this is just my belief. We, for instance, like if you're in the military, you feel a part of the nation's armed forces, and you maybe comply a bit more, but I'm not using this as an example necessarily. Second of all, absolutely you can do it for time. In fact, the link that doesn't work will guide you to humble.associates/journey, which works, will guide you to is a self-assessment. Mm-hmm. But the full version, the commercial version, is the same, except it's a 360. So you will see what other people think about you. And finally, you can definitely do it over time because you change as a leader. Hopefully, with this tool, you will have a map and knowing how you change towards the goal that you want to achieve. Yep. Hopefully, this goal will be your own fulfillment, which might coincide with the fulfillment of the organization, might not.
The obvious thing to say also, and if you follow some of Bob's work, you'll see how he demonstrates profiles evolving as well. And he does that through coaching, for example. So there'll be initial...
Which is the way we help.
Yeah,
people.
So initial assessment, where are you? What's your leadership stance like? As the leader, what do you want to improve on? It's not us, not our decision. Where would you like to improve your qualities? If we would like to go through a coaching program with you, we can do some coaching, and then we'll see how that goes for you, and then assess at some point later and see what happened.
So we're professional leadership coaches, and this is how we work with leaders. But this is also a great tool to work with groups of leaders.
Yes.
If they want to shape their group culture within a leadership team. Thank you so much, Anna, for the great question.
Thank you so much. It was brilliant.
Any other questions?
All questions are welcome.
Eric?
Yes.
Yes, so the focus of your talk is on leadership.
Yes.
But do you have an experience with using this tool with, for example, developers?
Nope, because the thing is that particular developer someone that is or wants to be a leader? If you don't want to be a leader, this might not be a tool for you. Right? I don't have the experience that it will not work. It's just not designed to work this way. You probably can use it, and I'm sure that with many of the dimensions in terms of adult growth and such, this will actually work quite well, but be aware that this is not the tool, what the tool was designed to do, right? So you have to undig and unpack the whole academic thing to be able to reshape it to, for instance, as you said, developers, which I'm sure there's plenty of value there, right? But I'm always warning people because sometimes, well, I remember I had like 2 clients that came out with their results and they weren't happy. And I said, look, do you actually want to be a leader? And I said, no. Or they said no. And I said, well, that's fine. You don't have to be. Even saying that is an act of leadership, which is very important. But then this set of values and dimensions might not correlate to what you want to do in your life. So best do what you want to do. Thank you, Eric. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? We're going to get a straight answer.
I wanted to say that one last question, and we will go into break.
Yes, you have a final chance for a question, or you can go to humble.associates/notworking QR code, also known as Journey.
I was saving it for the last question.
Go ahead.
So, can you maybe you can share a roadmap of this tool? I mean, you had only 8 characteristics there.
Oh, you want to see the full thing? So what you will see there is on the outside. Yeah? If we can, thank you for letting us use the slide.
I'll go back.
The full tool has like many, many more, which are basically subsets of these 8.
Yeah.
That's not a roadmap, because essentially what we do when we're coaching people is you do this sort of assessment, and we work through a coaching program to basically ask, what's your goal? Okay, so you've got that, right? Imagining that is you, or you obviously will have a different profile. I say, okay, so what do you see? Then I'll tell you what I observe. And then we'll talk about your situation at work. How does it relate to agility? How does it relate to your team? How does it relate to your organization? And I'll ask, what do you want to achieve? And then we'll figure out a roadmap. This is just a blank canvas, a template for a map, but you draw a map yourself, or at least put the X in where you want to be. And we're coaches helping you get there with our tools. So thank you. That's a lovely question. And I think our wonderful ladies hosting us say there's the last question. So we would like to take a bow for you, and thank you for being a great audience.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we will have